I just shared the whole channel with you again,
Well,
Roxanne.
okay, here's the other thing that's different. So I have a state account, but I don't have a full state account because like I have it through that contract that I have with early intervention, and I can't record meetings. I can't, when I schedule a meeting, I can only send out a link. I can't include a phone number. So I have some kind of a semi-less premium account through the state. So my view is probably going to be like the other people who don't have state accounts.
But actually, like I set this up for my board members some time ago, and you don't have to have a state account to join this. Yeah, but you have to have an Outlook account, which you can create for free. But I have like some directions that one of our folks here made. I can drop that in the chat if that would be at all helpful on like how to make an account.
It made me create a whole nother account. So I have 2 Teams accounts with the same email address. So I don't know if that's like, because what was assigned the way I did it.
I do have an Outlook account too, but I'm not going in under that. This is like now I'm under my state of North Dakota account.
Like I have to change accounts to be able to access these meetings and whatnot. Okay, do we want to get started then, or did you guys have anything else you were chatting about you want to finish before I jump in? Okay, it's 1:09, so we'll call to order. I can see everybody, but if we, I guess officially, Cheryl, are you present? I see Trevor, Veronica, Kim, Roxanne, and myself for the 6 that we have on the executive committee currently.
Looks like Lori's also joining us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was told by Dave that we're not to point out guests if they want to introduce themselves, but, but yeah, so there are some guests listening in too. If you'd like to speak up, you can introduce yourself now.
It is Lori. You were right, and I'm just listening. Thank you.
Okay, so first, we need to look at. You guys had a chance to look at the minutes from the 10th. If there were any updates to those, I'm trying to see that. Are they cleaning again at job service? Is that what that is?
Yeah. It was January 9th, wasn't it, or 10th? 10th. 10th, okay.
You have the 10th on there.
Okay.
I would move for approval.
I'm just gonna pull them up here real quick.
I will second it.
Okay, just a minute, guys. Okay, I'm sharing, but what can you guys see?
Yes.
The minutes or?
Yep.
Gotta love it. I can't see even what I'm sharing. Okay, so everybody was there. Did anybody have any edits or anything, the discussions or anything that at all, or was there no issues from how it's recorded from what you remember? And then I will recognize Trevor and the motion. Nope. Okay, so there was a motion to approve and seconded by Cheryl. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. sorry for the background noise here, but I'll move quickly into going to pull up the agenda as in here. Did anybody else have issues accessing the documents?
Well, I don't know what documents you're talking about.
Well, did you have any issues accessing anything besides?
Yeah, I didn't get in before the meeting to look at anything.
Okay, I just didn't know if anybody else had trouble getting into anything either at all.
I just pulled the agenda off of the Secretary of State or the public meetings site.
So there's some minor changes. It's not exactly what was but it's not, I mean, it's not that different. So this agenda. So I was just going to briefly touch on the bylaws. I'm not sure if you guys have followed the emails back and forth with, or I guess, no, excuse me, I apologize. Veronica sent Julie and I some edits that she had made and questions along the lines of bylaws. And by all means, if there are questions or things that you guys feel that need to be addressed, I think that I was going to upload that to SharePoint so that it can be looked at and tracking set into it so that any changes made would have who did it and the notation that they have. If you guys want to, otherwise that is one that Julie and I have talked about, and again, we'll connect a little bit more here, that we want to continue working towards. Initially, the bylaws were brought up for the purpose of membership. Anything after that is up to the executive committee to decide the need for change and then recommend to the council for the full vote for the full council. So we'll continue to work on that. I wanted to bring it to the committee's attention that we are currently, with the 20 members that we have, the guidance that was given in the interim was that our statute doesn't necessarily need to change because it says that we will be compliant with federal law with the DD Act. But while we wait for ACL to tell us whether or not DHS can hold 4 seats or just 1 is irrelevant to the fact that we only have 55% membership for citizen members. And with that, we don't have the citizen representation that we're supposed to have at the 60%. In order to have 60% with the current agency representation that we have, we need to add 3 seats. And so that process can be entertained with Julie and I talking to the governor's office and figuring out what to do. Dave Shively said that it would be a very simple request because it would not involve changing statutes. It would not involve anything super complex. We wouldn't be asking for any kind of appropriation for it. It's simply that we want to adhere to the numbers. So it would put us at the 23 members that we need to have when in the end game if ACL was to come back and tell us that that we could maintain those 4 spots the way they are, then our numbers wouldn't change. If they do come back later and tell us we need additional members, we would then have to grow exponentially. But 23 is the minimum number of council members per the requirements, and so it does match. But so those would be 3 additional citizen seats. Looking at a parent of a child, parent of an adult who can't advocate for themselves, or a self-advocate. And so I just wanted to kind of bring it up for discussion and see what your guys' thoughts were.
So how many members do we have?
We currently only have 20 member spots available on the, I'm going to stop sharing because I feel like I can't see anybody.
Okay, so my question is, if we have the member that we all had since I've been on, since anybody's been on, we are compliant.
We are not. We've not had
Why?
60%.
Okay. I don't understand. But that's okay.
Because
if we don't provide it, then we had to increase our membership.
We will
So
have to
wait.
increase it to 23 no matter what. 23 is the minimum required number.
So we just need to get people on the council, Brittany.
We
Well,
do.
an
So
update. Oh,
I was
sorry.
going to say there's two things to look at. So
Okay.
having the spots available to be filled makes us compliant. Not having appointments does not make us non-compliant. The numbers that we need for quorum and for votes is based on current membership. So until people are appointed, it wouldn't be an issue. The problem is that we need to have the ability to have the seats that we would need. This is not addressing DHS. This is not addressing the other seats that are required at this point. This is simply, we have to have 60% consumer membership, and we do not.
So question,
Just
would
as
we
an
be,
update from, oh, go ahead, Veronica.
it's okay. Just, so you say we need, well, we'd have to have 23 members to get in compliance for where we're at right now. My question is if the agency representation was limited in statute eventually, would we still have to have 23 members? Because I guess I have concerns about filling a very large number of slots with people who are engaged in the group, and then having a lot of vacancies and different things, or having a group that's too big to be productive.
Mm-hmm. So there are other minimum allotment states that have 30. 30 scares me too. So if they were to come back and say that we had to have our state statute required 3 additional members plus the 9 required in DD Act, it would require us to be 30% council. That would be a large growth. Right now, I'm addressing it as if they would say, our state statute says we need to have those 3 additional members, and it says that we'll be federally compliant. So we've been given a pause with whether or not DHS can represent all the agencies that it is representing according to our bylaws and policy. And then, so having the 3 additional citizen members puts us up to 60%. It does not change agency representation. And then if it comes back and says that we can stay as is with agency representation, we would not need to change anything at all.
So just want to clarify what I'm hearing. So if, say, we changed state statute down the line and limited those 3 extra members, we could potentially have a smaller board.
23 is the minimum required. So they would have to address that on multiple levels.
Can I ask you something? Would that the state, but what did our bylaw say? Because we had to go with our bylaw, we don't. They would like to, but each state go by what they have. So what our bylaws say, because our bylaws say that we do have a quorum.
Our bylaws say we have to have 60% consumer membership.
Okay, so right now we do have our membership in place. You're talking about something separate, right? That way I understand it.
Yes, no, we're not talking about the membership committee. Sorry, talking about the total council.
Okay, so the whole DD County, not only that, but the whole 50 state, they need to change that. So, but I'm talking about our bylaw in North Dakota, which we go by, not what the center is.
North Dakota's bylaws, our bylaws say we have to have 60% because that's federal law. They are. Okay. It already says that there would not be any changes.
I'm not opening. I'm not trying to understand. So we don't get. So you don't get it mixed up. So I don't get confused. Because it is confusing.
No, absolutely. So to clarify, when I was saying membership, I was not referring to the membership committee. So thank you. I didn't realize that it maybe came off that way. Membership as members of the council as a whole. And so that's why I was bringing it bringing this up.
And I wanted to provide an update from Jack. He did reach out to me last week and said they have not made a determination on our membership yet. He was hoping by summer perhaps. So if we have to do a change in August to the plan with membership, they would have an answer. But as of right now, they haven't made a determination on our membership ask yet on the requirements. So I just wanted to share that. Like, this is what Brittany's saying and looking at, but I did want to share that they haven't said anything yet, so that's kind of what we know to go on right now.
And that's addressing the 4-for-1, the DHS representing 4 agencies versus having to have representation on the council for each of the different federally required. Right. And so to answer Veronica's question a little bit further, say we move forward with getting 23 out to be able to be filled and appointed now. If they do, if the ACL guidance, which won't be specific to us, but if the ACL guidance comes out and does say that if you have an umbrella organization like we do with the HHS, that if their internal structures or whatever permit them to be decision makers for those other entities, the VOC or the rehab and Medicaid and oh my God, I sound like those other agencies, that we would be able to address if we updated. Thank you. Well, you're already on me, Title V, Kim. Sorry, Medicaid and my point is there's rotating membership. So if we needed to address numbers again, like for some reason, if we ended up being too many, which we wouldn't at 23 because we would be the 60-40. But if we ever ended up in that position with the staggered membership, we would be able to address it without having to, say, kick people off, if that makes sense. It was kind of a light bulb thought that I had as well, if we got in a position where we needed to have more and then didn't need to have more. We did not address the fact that we didn't have 60% with specifically when Julie and I were talking with Cheryl with ITAC. We were talking about the growth possibility. And so that is a follow-up conversation that we could have if it was felt that we needed to have. As far as Dave Shively with AG said, he thought it would be fairly easy. It would not require consent because we don't get consent from DHS, and it should just be presenting that little bit of information. Hey, we need to increase our members. It's not going to cost the state anything. It's something that we do. This is why, here you go, that it would be fairly simple except for the fact of having to recruit and get appointments. But having the seats available, saying that we are a body that has room for 60% citizens makes it compliant, that we just have to show effort to work towards filling those.
But my question is, and I understand that, Brittany, but my question is the seat filled until everybody go off, until people go off at different times, then we should fill them. And I know some other councils, like, they try to find people until they do, then that person stay on until they could find a person.
And that's actually covered in law, Cheryl, so you are right.
If we focus on everything, I understand when you come from what you do and what I don't. But that is my preference. But if we keep on going over and over, I feel like we are not going to get anything done on the council. And that's what concerns me. I mean, I understand why it's important, but we just got, I don't mean to make it complicated, because I've been thinking about it, but if we have people came and talking to us, say everything going okay, everything is okay, that's what I'm going to go by. that they know inside and out.
So the recognition that we had an issue with membership was not recognized because the way our reporting has been. Our reporting was not accurate. The membership categories that were submitted were not accurate. So for them to be able to make that determination without us contacting them is part of the problem. The second part, Cheryl, I want to point out is that it is federally required that all DD councils have to have 60% citizen membership. Every vote we take, every grant we fund, every project we do, if we don't have appropriate representation,
But we do.
I seriously doubt we don't though, Cheryl. We do not have 60%.
Well, we had the parents, we had the self-advocacy, we had the agent that helped us. So what other one do we need?
We have to have 60% citizen members, and they have to be divided into 3 different groups. 1/3 are self-advocates, 1/3 is parents of adults and children, and then 1/3 is a mix of the both.
But
because it is consumer-led.
now?
We have 55, actually we have 50 filled, we have 55 from our total seat. But the one vacancy is not relevant.
Roxanne had a question. Would these be 3 new members?
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
To answer in the chat, Roxanne.
I like them.
So we're
Yeah.
looking, we have to do 4.
We would need 4 appointments. It would be 3 new seats. So on the boards and commissions page, for instance, it shows 21 because they have Julie listed weird, but there'd be 21 or 23 listed there as member spots.
Sure.
And we would need 4 new appointments, yes.
Okay, and do we need to do anything at this point?
It is something that, I mean, I wanted to involve the executive committee. It's something that Julie and I can pursue, but with all the opinions and warmth with the discussions of this, I just wanted to be transparent. I wanted everybody to be involved. It does not require a policy change. It does not require a bylaw change. It does not require action per se, more of in a support manner that if we are consumer led, then we need to have consumer representation. It's an interim fix that helps us to take action to be compliant. That was recommended. Cheryl, in her conversations with us too, said you just tell the governor's office what you want to do to follow the state law and federal. And then Dave Shively said the same thing. It's something that shouldn't be difficult, but it would be 4 more.
So
one of which for
you need
sure
a motion to act on it is the question.
I don't believe so. I think it would show support if the executive committee agreed to pursue this or to have Julie and I talk to the governor's office. It doesn't necessarily need it. But again, just trying to have everybody informed and participate.
This is Veronica. I would make a motion for the DD Council to connect with the governor's office to put us in compliance with the terms of the DD Act and allowing up to 3 additional citizen members being represented as we figure out our bylaws and policies. My whole thought is I just want to know that there can be an end date to this if we get to a point where we change up state agencies and maybe we wouldn't need as many members or whatever.
We'll never have where we don't have 23. I mean, 23 is the minimum. Even if, well, okay, no, I see exactly where you're talking about. Sorry, Veronica. So if we don't have LSTC and job service and DHS serves not as DHS, but as both rehab and Medicaid, and the other one that I'm drawing a blank on for some odd reason today.
Like in an ideal world, I'm thinking DHHS would have perhaps 1 vote because if you had the right person, they could serve all of those roles.
And that is what the ACL will be looking into, because currently it's written that they have to have decision-making authority for each and every one of those programs. And while they are they going to? Typically, it doesn't work that way. Where say Sarah would tell Damien what to do, like literally do this program, start it, form it. So That's what they'll be discussing. But that's where my point was. I saw what you're asking, but it didn't make sense completely until just now. So yes, if we were to lose those additional 3 members that are required in state statute, if DHS was able to not be them, but be those 3 other agencies, it would change our numbers where we could go down a little bit. Right now, the math comes out to 22.5. So we have to go up to 23.
And that's fine. And my
referencing
motion supports that. I'm just trying to make sure we remember there could be an end date on this if our state code changes.
Yeah, and I think if you, yeah, I think your motion covers it too. It's state code and federal with the 60. The 60 is variable upon agency representation. So
I'll second it.
okay, I have Veronica's motion that I'm not going to repeat, but we are recording. I'll have it in detail, seconded by Roxanne. Per Dave, we had quite a bit of discussion, so I'm going to do roll call vote. Cheryl, yay or nay? Yeah, okay. Trevor?
Oh, sorry, Cheryl, what was that? I missed it.
Yeah,
Okay, I just couldn't hear. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes,
thank you. Kim?
Yes.
Veronica
Yes.
and Roxanne.
Yes.
Okay, so motion carries, and Julie and I will work to follow that. I'm dead here. So we'll quickly move to executive committee planning. I'm just going to skirt over because we've only got a few minutes, or I'll skirt over for now. The unfinished business grant apps and whatnot. There's the follow-up to the dance studio, I believe, if I'm summing that correctly.
DFY studio, yes.
Okay. And you put those under the meetings, right?
Yep. I think in minutes, and then I just did a new file on executive committee.
I think I was going to redo them anyway and do them by committee and then do them everything but then instead of the other way, if we can play with that. Okay, so if anybody didn't get to look at it yet, I'm going to open. So I also replied to Julie and asked her to share the questions. We have the responses to the questions. It made a lot of sense after I saw them. However, I was not quite sure where she was going on number 4. So the questions that Julie asked were, I don't have enough screens. Julie, do you have that in front of you where you could read your questions?
Yep, I'll pull it up.
So the questions that you guys were asking were ones that I would have had to, along the lines of budget. What would things actually be paying for?
Number 1 was, oh, do you want me to go?
Yeah,
Number 1
go ahead.
Was how many people do you expect to serve with this grant, and how many people per class are there? Number 2 was, is this pricing for the class a per person number or a per class amount? We weren't sure if you could fill the class with 50 for the same amount, or is it a per person charge? Number 3 was, are these classes integrated, meaning people with and without disabilities together in class? And number 4 is, I put, we are hoping for a better breakdown in the budget, like the per person per class request, payment to teachers, payment to the studio for use, etc. A better picture of the money needed. I have attached the budget document for you.
I can't see anybody, so if somebody wants to start with questions, otherwise I have some questions. I did listen to the meeting last month and your discussion, and I guess I agree with the follow-up questions, but don't want to start with commentary if somebody else wants to. Nobody? Okay. My questions were on was there further discussion, but I skimmed over of where this fits on our within our state plan. I was trying to find that document to pull up it so we could, one, start there, and then two, I think the answers further clarified that it's kind of staff support versus program support. There's not an established program or base of people that will be taking the courses, and what your guys' thoughts were on considering funding individuals to take courses. I mean, they're not changing the curriculum necessarily or offering modified that require special training. I struggle with the fact that there's not an already recruited base of or group of individuals that is going to take these classes and whatnot, versus paying the staff wages.
I make a motion to deny the request.
Okay, so there's a motion to deny it. Trevor, do you have any interest in following up with them again for technical assistance, or just redirecting that the council is choosing not to act on it?
Just redirect them.
What do you mean by that?
Just let them come back to us and figure it out.
So just tell them deny and come back, or just we denied it?
We deny it.
Okay. So his motion is just to deny it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I think, Julie, if you and I want to touch base to see if we can find where it might have been, or to verify that it differs from our state plan, or that, or whatever. I mean, we don't have to justify in a denial, but I think it's transparent too. But I agree with Trevor. I don't want to have them just keep coming back to just be keep told no. If it's not something that we feel like we should support in the form that it's in, for sure. Is there a second or discussion?
I guess one thing that I think's a flaw in it is that it's not integrated. I guess I would like to see just, you know, if children want to do dance classes, it would be nice to have people with disabilities also with people that don't have disabilities. I think it'd be a better learning opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, I was concerned about the thought that folks had to be ready for a class that wasn't specific for people with disabilities when I read what she had sent in the second time, which kind of lends itself to never happening. But
and I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if you guys, I don't know if I uploaded the state plan one or not, but I searched recreation, I searched other things. I was trying to find where it met any of our objectives. Yeah, and my response to is similar to Roxanne's. I thought it was kind of funding the hypothetical, funding the ability to offer but it seemed like in a whole class format versus just being able to provide extra staffing, maybe to accommodate, you know, an individual that may need more supports or help following your routine or something like that.
So is there a second? Did I miss that?
No, there's still just
Okay.
a motion and some discussion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. So I have Trevor's motion to deny, Roxanne second, and all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Trevor, I'm assuming that's an aye.
Aye, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Great. No, you're good. Okay. Back to my thing. Okay. We have the informal RFP that was sent out for the peer-to-peer. Did you guys have a chance to check it out?
I read it. I thought it seemed sufficient.
Well, and I said the agenda to just briefly go over it if there weren't any major objections to it, as long as I mean, it's on our plan, it's on the annual work plan, it's something that's been discussed. As long as there's not anything that anybody objected to in it, I don't see why we can't put it out. And so I just wanted to take just a couple minutes to hear if there was any concerns or otherwise.
I didn't have concerns. I mean, honestly, I think we just chose to do this because the other proposal came in higher than we had hoped. So I think we just wanted to put this out there, hoping that we could get a better price.
Mm-hmm. And then the dates, Julie, I don't want to stop the screen to pull that up. As far as dates go, I personally don't feel that any direction with dates. I mean, if it's going to take X number of days to get it situated and put through and stuff like that, just best judgment to put kind of that start date and end date, and then any responses will come back to the executive committee to chat more about anyway. So
how I timed it was about a month. If I can get this approved by procurement and release, they'd have about a month for applications to come in. By the 13th, we meet again the 14th. So noon, March 13th, things would come in that could go out to you guys. I know it's a short timeline, but then at our next day agendas, we could do the scoring and all of that, if that works for you guys.
I think that's a good plan, and we'll talk to make sure that they're complete to whatever, that we have at least the minimum information that we need to be able to work through that.
So you get the apps, the scoring tool, and all of that, and then we can go through those.
Well, and we'll follow that. So policy and the guidance that we would review them independently and score them independently, and then once those are done, we would come together. So yes, if we think we can do that night. But the initial part I was talking on is just not bringing them to the committee unless they're complete enough to make a decision on in the first place. So if they're incomplete, then we wouldn't review it. If they're missing budgets or if they don't have something. But putting it out this way, they're likely to submit the majority of that. So. Okay, any issues with moving on?
So do I need a motion, or can I work on getting that released?
I make a motion that Julie move forward with taking care of the RFP.
Yeah. Is there a second? I wasn't looking actually for a motion. I think that it's there, so yeah. Second. But yes, executive committee supports the RFP moving forward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, I'll get working on that.
Okay. The last item that I had with our 14 minutes or so is I had have Julie do some with the budget, but I haven't seen anything that's updated either. So I want to move to us doing more of the expenditure review, so that when we have the full council meetings, that we can give the executive committee recommendations. This is good. We're within lines with our administrative. This project spent this much money. Great. We should be doing end of the year evaluations in a sense that kind of help us gauge whether or not what we funded, if the activities and objectives were met, if it met our state plan, and that's what's supposed to fuel the annual work plan, or any changes and amendments to that. We can look at how many different committees do that right now. The way it's written is that the state plan committee is the one who would formulate that review process. But it's the executive committee that would give them the information they need to be able to do that. So that was my part of this. I don't know if, Julie, if you have what you were planning on discussing budget-wise tomorrow available.
Yeah, it's up. It's in that channel, the update, and I'll share my screen. I just got, Megan had to collect match figures. Can you see my screen?
Not now.
I just stopped sharing, so it might take a second.
Oh. So by tomorrow too, I can get match updated in here, like as another column, like paid and then match. So this was the new document we worked on to kind of put the goal, the objective, the project underneath there with what would be paid. And then I have dates of what Megan's contract report says. So different things are categorized, like the contract report, it'd be from 10/1 to 1/30 when she runs that. Admin reports where the date was a little different, but I can add that date in there so we know from what period it was pulled from.
Are you still putting this into the Excel form? Because this is just supposed to be the visual of the Excel.
I did not, because I thought this is what the group said they liked, so they could see it all in one place together.
I like it. It's easier.
This is the summit, like a summary type to do it. But so the money we give to all, that's kind of a
and then
to be able
paid.
to, the end game, Julie, like when you're doing your reports and whatnot, is that this would be a good summary, but we need to still have the information to show what we funded for all. And so it would be broken down if X amount of dollars went to the testimony writing event, that would be under that line. And if X amount of dollars went to the gathering group meetings in Bismarck, so there would be those, or however. So, but that's on the technical document, because this is one that we would be presenting to the council, the executive committee, eventually to review a bit more of where it went and how it went, and then the timeline of how it's being spent.
So for coding, there's a cost line item for all, and that's what's paid out to all, which is the travel, the meetings, that's the cost center. So that's not currently broken out like that. Is that something you guys want, or do you like how this looks? I mean, I'm open to suggestions, but that would have to be a change. So it all gets coded to that cost center for all, if that makes sense. It's not broken out on their contract system that the fiscal agent uses for per thing.
I think we can follow on that. From my understanding, it does have to be broken out, much like, because all the grantee, like any of the other grantees, so we have to be able to separate what we're doing at what rate for reimbursement, what's our indirect, what are direct, what are program, what are activities, and so that it's there. And so we're granting them that money, but just like any other grantee, they have to be able to show what they're using it for.
So if I had a consumer, or I had an innovation grant, you'd want to, for grow, you'd want to see what I spent for seeds, what I spent for reimbursing the coordinator, what I spent on the plot costs. I mean,
not necessarily, like, but that would be in your proposal. That would have been in your grant request. You would have had the expenses for the plot, how much you were going to invest in what you're going to be planting, the staff or administrative support expense, and the, any overall or ongoing things. If you were supporting people to get there, you would have that built in. So it would be reporting on what's required to request the money, so that kind of, we know where it's going. So if we're, for instance, if we're funding project A, B, and C, and they're all for the same objective, but at the end of the game, we see that project B spent an exorbitant amount on getting people there, but very little program. Well, is it because their program's solid and established and we need to look at doing that again? Or is it because there really wasn't much substantive program? And so that would be answered by the report and the review of their surveys and whatnot that they're supposed to be collecting. Hey, Lori, I see your hand, just a second. So that's my thought. I mean, anything that we're funding should have a budget submitted with the request, and we have to support a statewide self-advocacy type of network. And so we don't need to know that they ordered pizza. I mean, we don't need to know those details, but we need to know what was spent on the different types of categories that are on our current grant application budget, because that's the standard of to know what is what. There's limitations on indirect costs. There's limitations on those things of what we're allowed to fund.
So the
Brittany, can I add something? Should we? I understand what you're asking, but I think you should bring it to the whole council and see what kind of report they want. Because you may want this, but you may want something different.
And the whole council doesn't.
I understand that, but still got to bring it to the whole council, because the whole council got to understand, because that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
It is, that's correct.
You make a good point.
That's the work that the DSA should be doing.
I think we need to bring it back to the whole council and see, and bring what you like to see. But some of them may like something not in depth, but because we could that's a lot of work for people.
And Cheryl, I'm not saying that.
I mean, that's a lot of work.
What's being presented right now, Cheryl, is what ideally will be presented to the full council, but the detailed information will be available in this online record SharePoint for those who wanted to look at it. So presenting it in a simple form of saying, we funded this, this is how much, that's for presenting to the full council. If somebody wants more information, we would give them more information, but we are required to know how much we're spending in these different categories for granting, and that should be determined upon giving the money, allocating the money.
That information, Brittany, if you would like to know, this is Lori. I can shed a little light on that if you'd like.
Mm-hmm. Well, stuff for NDCPD is a little different than it is the council. Much to the
no. I'm talking about the council.
Okay.
So we've had.
Are you guys okay with comments?
Pardon?
Yes.
Does anybody have any objection? Okay. Go ahead.
So the budget that gets turned in, it goes to procurement. They don't release the money unless they have a receipt or a bill for the actual things. So we don't just put in a bill and say, you promised us $10,000 and now we're ready for it. It's here, we have receipts for this much money and this is how much we're being reimbursed. The other thing is that Julie and Cheryl Hess prior to that have always required that if you make any changes to the budget, that they have to go through approval before you can spend the money. And so the budget that is presented with the grant is in fact what is spent, and Julie has all of the changes on a regular basis if there are any. And so I think that information should be available through the procurement office and their reporting. That's where we would find our detailed money for our subcontracts if we were paying money out.
And I'm not sure if you were, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and that's where. So to support Cheryl's concerns too, is this is part of the DSA's requirement to give us the fiscal and administrative information, but it is required that it comes back to the council as a part of the review process. And so I don't know that putting it in the form that we want, that members say they want, things like that, that's specific to us. And yes, that would require some work. And part of that is already being seen because Julie started using this form to try and put it all together. So it's a little bit easier on the eye.
I'm just saying that she is never going to know what money was spent. It's the procurement office that's going to know, because they pay the bills.
Correct, but they're supposed to be giving us all receipts. The executive committees actually are supposed to be looking at all the expenditures. So
they're the ones that would make it available, not Julie. Does that make sense? They would make it available.
Yes, via Julie, because Julie's the liaison between the council and the DSA. So that, yes, I'm not saying that Julie would need to recreate the wheel and come up with this by any means. Yeah, so that's the request of that information. Again, it doesn't have to happen overnight, but just that it's on our radar of moving towards having that information available to the committees and the council and the public.
And so, you know, when an award goes on the contract system, it becomes a contract with us. If it's a grant or what have you, on the contract system, they bill with a 1763. So when you send that form in, you put in, we're billing for this time period, $5,000. They send that to me to be paid. They're required to keep, meaning the grantee, the person requesting the money, keeps all receipts and records because DHHS does audits. So that's kind of how the system works. Every time they send a 1763 into me, they don't send me every receipt for that, if that makes sense. They would have a breakdown of, here's the billing, you know, here's what we billed for, etc. But I don't know if it's going to get as specific as, I'd have to relook at what's on the 1763, but I don't know if it's going to say mileage or how, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
The 1763 is broken down fairly to where it kind of.
But I'm saying, I know, but I'm saying if you want every single one of those items broke down, we're going to have to look at what's on the 1763 and what comes in. So I'm just saying that's going to take some time to look at, but so you guys know how things are billed and paid out. Our members might not be aware of what a 1763 payment form is. For small grants,
not something that comes to the members. That's the point.
I know, but I'm reiterating how it comes in, how it's paid. It's going to take time to look at that, build new cost centers, work with our fiscal agent. That's all going to have to be different because that's not how she has the totals, correct? But if we want to break all those things down, it's just going to take a little time. That's what I'm saying.
So it does have where there's the breakdown, but nonetheless, it is something that the council should have. We can't ensure that we're having accurate match or other things if we're not doing that, and that is something that we should be doing.
Our fiscal agent tracks match, so you don't have to bill match every 1763. I'm just letting you know. They can bill it at the end, they can bill it throughout. That's all taken care of by our fiscal agent. So again, I think it's a question to work with her on that.
We can follow up with that more. That's actually a task that's the responsibility of the council to ensure that the fiscal agent is doing correctly, but we have to be aware of that information at all times. As a part of the ongoing review of
There's 3 questions, hands up, and I would like to get to them before, because Trevor's got to go, his ride's here. So if we can get through that. Do you need me to open the door?
Yeah.
I don't know. Now I kind of forgot. It's okay. For one thing, I think I would need a great deal of support to get to this point of detail. Like, and if we had to participate to this level. So I guess I would say this is a question for technical assistance. Like,
and they've addressed it. There's detailed and so that's on my documents I've uploaded. So they've laid out the roles of the council in reviewing of these things. It's in a lot of the documents that explain what we should be doing because it's the accountability piece. But yes, recreating it from scratch is something that seems daunting, and that is us also utilizing the DSA and ensuring that they're giving us the information that we need to easily be able to look at, review things, check boxes, and say, yes, this matches, that matches, and move forward. Not that we need to be accounting and matching receipts and budget lines.
Well, I mean, a little bit of this too is, I mean, the council already has a reputation for being a really tough line of funding to access. And if this becomes even more tedious for users out there, I am concerned about that. Well,
there wouldn't be any change on the user end.
I mean, it's one thing. I mean, if for on one hand, if you're going to request receipts for every 1763 that goes in, that will be like being audited every time, and then having to put it up against the budget and what that looks like. So if you're, 85 cents, I'm just being facetious, but I don't know where we're going with this. This is,
no,
I mean, I don't have a sense of this. So.
The council would not be looking at receipts. Part of the staff role in this is the ongoing audit ability, and the court, not just taking reports quarterly, but the quarterly report should include numbers. All of this is supposed to go into feedback of a process that we should have in place for ensuring that what we're funding and what we're doing meets the state plan. And then that is fueled to help us make any changes to our objectives for the following year. We should be making an annual budget, and that annual budget doesn't really change much. We allocate those funds based on that feedback information, the information and processes and things throughout the state, services and supports that are happening, fuel some of those changes as well. Just kind of having that process. I mean, we have it laid out. The process is defined. We just haven't been doing it. And in a lot of those questions and discussions that I've been having, folks, those are the questions I'm asked. Well, what do you do? What is this process? What does this look like? How are decisions made? And we don't see the end. We see the initial allocation, but that changes frequently. And so I mean, I've got several, which again, Julie and I will connect. And so if this budget document that's out there for the full council, we need to save it a certain way where there's a date, so that the next one that's titled the same way has a different date, because our numbers change frequently where they shouldn't. We establish the annual budget and we say we're going to spend X amount of dollars on goal one. It can be broken down into those activities. If we have a grantee that was allocated but didn't spend the money, much like the core indicators and things like that, then we would make some adjustments. But we shouldn't be changing up the budget all year long. And that, again, that still accommodates rolling requests and things like that. The RFPs and the complexity, that's up to the council. You don't have to have the super, super complex grant application or whatever. That's not something that has to have. That's something that people have complained about before that we've addressed. That the application's complex, the innovative application's complex. We can make it as simple as we want it to be, as long as we meet the requirements of doing those funds.
Brittany, I need to learn. I'm not getting on anybody. Do you think we are doing this wrong? Personally, do you think we are doing this wrong? Personally, I can't hear you.
I couldn't make out the end of your question, Cheryl. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, okay. Do you think we are doing this wrong? Personally, not personally. I'm not talking about the count. Because I need to understand, because I agree with Roxy and I agree with myself. You guys think too much. We can never act. We are good. We don't just hand out our money. We make sure that you want to see where all the money go. Personally.
Well, I won't have a personal answer for you, Cheryl, because in this capacity, it's not a personal answer. As chair, I do feel that we need to make sure we're adhering to the financial guidance. There's a whole packet. It's uploaded on the share thing now. I can send it to you if you'd like. There's the financial booklet that tells us how we should be operating that way. There's there's little PowerPoints from ITAC and whatnot too, council responsibilities for the whole council that addresses the budget and how it's kind of that overview, providing the summary information, but that the executive committees, the chair and the director, the further staff under the director have other responsibilities to make sure that different pieces and parts go the way they're supposed to. I believe that there's a lot that we need to be doing.
Responsible for ever since I've been on here. And when we go back to our meeting when we have people coming in, and I asked them, are we doing everything right? And they said, yes, we are. So I'm not arguing, I'm just trying to point out if this what you want personally, or because you can't get the council, the DC council, because we all heard that. We all heard them saying that we are right on track. So you can't use the DC council. I just want to understand, is it the personal goal? And that is different. I'm just being advocate. You know, I'm just trying to understand before we ask our what do you call it, an admin. Can I agree with Roxy, if we get it too complicated, then we won't have people coming to us and fill out the process. Because I'm behind it right now, I wouldn't, because that would be too confusing.
And that's where I think there's confusion of the confusion. My questions for this have nothing to do with making things more complex for people applying for grants. It's actually to make things easier. I would like to simplify our application significantly. And we should be getting more information.
You're making it harder for people. It is complicated, so please. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Because if you fix it, you might be broken it more than it should be. And I'm not arguing with people. I'm just saying, I just want everybody to know that we heard them in June when they said we right on track. We you know, how we get out of grant, there's no problem. But I feel today you're saying that there is problems, so we need to do this and then like, it's tiring.
Yep, and I didn't want to get into the details again. Julie and I are going to have chats, and there's some other follow-ups. It was further clarified again that we do have to offer our grants competitively. Competitive does not mean doing an RFP. Competitive means putting it out for the public to know so that there are people who can respond and we can review multiple options, not just asking certain people or certain entities. So again, not something I wanted to dive into. I'm going to get to Veronica quickly answering Roxanne's last comment, that the 1763 breaking down further than that is not what I was necessarily referring to, Roxanne. But just that we need to have lines on the documents that the internal reviewing of the council, so that we are supposed to be able to double verify those indirect expenses, making sure that they were with the budget. The details of the receipt reviewing would be audit level, yes, but expenditures of the council is kind of that receipt review too. So we should be separating out how much the council is reimbursing for travel, if we're reimbursing for attendance support, if we're reimbursing for respite services that we can offer, and how much is in stipends. And then being able to see what it is with the meetings, what it is for other council engagements, what it is for sub-grantee groups, being able to split that out. Because one, that's a factor. If we do have to go up to 30 members, we don't have the room in our administrative budget to increase that significantly. So we need to be able to see where we can look at stuff. And that is the council's responsibility to look at those things, not the full council in detail. The executive committees look at some of the detail in conjunction with the director, and the director puts on the super hat and makes it happen. That's the part of it. I mean, it's a collaborative effort, but we don't necessarily have a history of the back. It's not saying that there was wrong, as in Cheryl's words, but if it's written that we need to do it, and it's not specific to our bylaws and policy, it's federal requirement, it's ITAC guidance in all the financial documents. I went through their little fiscal training too, which really wasn't super helpful. But their financial guide and the council orientation, the director orientation, all of those pieces out there very clearly explain what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. Veronica, sorry, your hand.
I guess this discussion to me, I mean, I agree that the council should have a good idea of where we're spending money and should have access to financial information on a regular basis. But to me, like, this really feels like digging down in the weeds and maybe even micromanaging. I guess I feel comfortable with Julie providing us with like a high level overview of, you know, we spent $100 on state plan goal 1 and $100 on state goal plan 2. And if we have more questions about that $100 from goal 1, then yeah, sure, provide us a breakdown. That's fine. But I guess I don't feel like I need an itemized sheet showing me every penny that comes in and out. I guess I feel like that's what we hired the executive director to do. And I trust that she does that. And if we had questions, that she would provide us with information. And just to me, I mean, I don't care what form she gives us this information in, if it's like that new document you just showed us or how it's been in the past with just a spreadsheet. I mean, it doesn't make a difference to me as long as the information is there and, you know, truthful or transparent or whatever word you want to say. So I guess I'm just kind of feel like we're really getting dug into this issue, and it's semantics.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I challenge you all to find time, which I know is not available, but I challenge you all to look at the financial documents that are addressed to council members and staff. They're not staff specific. And then if in fact, if we did, they don't do the audits the way that they used to. They don't do the on-sites the way they don't do the MTARs. They don't do all that stuff the way they used to. But if they did, and if they do it in the capacity that they are not quite widespread in doing audits, council members are expected to know the basics of some of these operational things, not be involved in them, not worry the day-to-day of it, but the council members are expected to know and be informed of. The executive committee is expected to know higher level details. We don't, if we were getting the detailed information from the DSA in a report, it would not be something that we would spend more than a few minutes going, okay, yeah, they're reporting, the numbers look good, let's move on. It's the fact that we don't have that and we don't have it available to the council or the public. We are required to be sharing who we're granting, how much we're granting them, for what activities, and what it's needing. There are requirements that we have that we need to make sure we're doing, especially if we're the source of ACL doing a deep dive federal law review for operations, membership, and other things.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you that we shouldn't be informed, but just because we don't have financial records sitting out on our website for every person that's interested to look does not mean it's not available. Anybody can do a public records request and we could come up with that information. So I guess it sounds like you would like things more readily available to the public, so people see that transparency of where we're spending funds. Is that where this is coming from?
Some of it, that's also the competitive piece, is that it's out there, but it's processes. There are things that we can trim out of our policy and procedures and bylaws, and there are things that we can't. And the council reviewing and doing the evaluations of what we've spent and what it applied to and did it meet is one of them. It can be high level, it can be in the weeds, it can be wherever the heck we want to put it, as long as we're checking the boxes of what we should be doing. But right now we don't have that loop. We allocate and we approve requests. we're not closing the loop on it. And that's something we can go to. Again, this was not meant to be a super detailed conversation today. I was hoping to review what budget information will be reported to the council tomorrow, at least in a high level fashion, so that there weren't any surprises tomorrow, because we should be reviewing it before it's presented to the council so that we can make recommendations, or we can say the executive committee's reviewed those details and recommend approving, you know, the budget update as is. The details in the weeds should not be discussed at full council meetings.
So, Brittany, everything that you believe, everything, so this is important to you, right?
Yeah, I guess I can hear that.
It is important, okay, and I understand that, and I don't mean to argue, but I just want to understand that I don't want it to be uncomplicated or be frustrated every time you come on here and you saying that we are not doing it right. When I know we've been doing right ever since I got on. If you want to know more, then yeah, if I want to know more too, that doesn't mean the council is doing the wrong thing. We've always been on the right track. And I go by Judy Bosch, and if they said that we are on the right track with our money, how we handle our money, and they don't have no problem with that, I'm going to go with their reformation, because they know more than we do. We just a member. I mean, I don't have the financial money. You know, I come out of my own bank book, but I don't have that. We all don't have that, and I'm not gonna pretend to. And I'm not. So we've been on track with our grant, our jury report, every meeting, non-detailed, would you would like, but she give us what we need. And like Vonga said, if we have questions, she could answer it, because she knows. And I gotta trust that to be honest. You know, and I understand money important, but to get too detailed, I don't understand no details. And I'm not gonna pretend I do. You know.
So I'm willing to, you know, if this budget document looks good for the council, I can work with Megan on seeing what we can do to break things out in a nice looking way for you guys. But I just need to know what the whole group wants. So that's the direction I need from you guys. What do you want? And figure out how we can do it. But I mean, like Veronica said, you know, we don't, if the public requests something, we'll provide it, but I don't know what needs to go on like the website. I think we can just have those things internally on the channel. DHS audits our program and audits our grantees for expenditures quite frequently, actually. So they are doing those high level things. So I just wanted to fill that in, that it is looked at a higher level of auditors. That's not us, but it is looked at. But if you want further breakdowns, we can discuss that at another time. I know we're 20 minutes over. So Brittany, if we can connect on that, I would appreciate that.
Yep, nope, that's part of the request of documents and things along those lines. And I'm going to get to Kim, but in response to that, it is the council's responsibility to follow the funds. It's the council's responsibility to do the audits. DHS does theirs according to their own. They're not doing it on behalf of or to the the standard of what we're required to do. And it doesn't mean that we have to do details. I'm just saying that ultimately how we spend our funds and how we document it and how we share with the public is on the council. DSA, the DSA with DHS doesn't take responsibility for errors that we may or may not make. They're doing their part within their regulations. The council has different requirements, and if they're giving us information that we want, that we need, that so it's not have to be done by the staff, great. That's the purpose of having that arrangement with them. Further, that's the purpose of having our MOU with them. So yes, Julie and I will follow more of that. Kim?
I just need to reflect and make sure I'm understanding correctly. And my one question was going to be, can you share that document? And I see you have it in the chat, so I will definitely look at that. But I mean, are we talking, originally I thought you were saying every reimbursement request that comes in, we need to do like a deep dive in, and then I'm hearing, no, that's not what you're asking. You're more saying that maybe on like a quarterly basis, we should be looking at expenditure reports more than we are now. And kind of taking a peek at how maybe that aligns with the state plan. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay.
Yeah, so yes, and under executive committee, and my computer is going to die here in a second. My under exec committee, there's it says that we should be getting monthly information and financials from the DSA. Again, that's something that we can kind of figure out on a council level if that's how we want to operate or not, those specifics. Quarterly, we should be getting the grantee reports. We should see the reports, and it should include financials. And then those reports are reviewed by the executive committee for the ongoing purpose. And then in some, we would prepare that information to give to the state plan committee to do it. It's supposed to be a pre-prescribed process according to policy. But the council as a whole, whichever committee we delegate it to do, the council is supposed to do an annual review of what we spent, how we spent it, and if it matched to those objectives and goals, and it hits our goals, objectives, and activities. It's part of the ongoing process. The federal mandate is that the council is actively involved in developing and ensuring that the state plan is carried out, The details of carrying it out is delegated to the staff. That heavy piece of that responsibility is the staff, the day-to-day. If we say we're going to spend this amount of money on this project, if it's in-house, then that's the staff to take care of it. That's the day-to-day. That's not where we're telling Julie to make this phone call on that date and use this person to help her do something. That's where we've delegated that. But the ensuring and the reviewing and the making sure, it doesn't mean that we're pointing fingers and saying that somebody's done something wrong. It means that we're doing our part to make sure that they did their part, because their part is a part. I mean, it's all the part. It's a back and forth. Julie has the responsibility to make sure the council is doing what they're doing. That falls on the director. Following policy is to make sure that we are doing what our policy says. Following it is the council in turn also making sure that the staff that we're federally mandated to hire and evaluate and all that kind of stuff to go through the whole circle. It's a loop. Everybody has responsibilities.
Yeah, I guess, well, first, I didn't expect this conversation to be about what it was about based on the agenda item, so it would have been helpful to have that document you're referencing beforehand, so I could have been more prepared, but that's fine.
I didn't intend for this to go this detailed either.
I'll go back and read it. That's fine. I guess I feel like perhaps there's different agendas of what people think is required for oversight, because I know our last few executive meetings have kind of gone off track a bit, but I think there's been several meetings where Julie's had a budget report for us and we haven't gotten to it or what have you, and we get, I would say, fairly comprehensive reports at the regular meetings. So, I mean, we could probably do better, but I guess I just don't know how in there we need to be providing oversight. So I'll read that document, though. Perhaps that'll change my mind. Perhaps it won't.
Well, and I'm just going to say one other thing is that we do have to work in the confines of limited time and resources. So everybody on this council and everybody on this executive committee is not, I mean, we are not doing this full time. And so we have delegated that to an executive director. And so there is a fine line between meeting the obligations, but not doing what we've delegated to the executive director. And so ultimately we're going to lose people if this is too complicated.
Yeah.
Like what Cheryl said. And so I think we have to really find that space. And I feel like, my general experience has been like, I feel like I know where the money, generally is going. If I had to be interviewed by KFYR, I might have a little bit more difficulty, like pulling it all out, but this isn't at the top of my plate all the time. This is not my deal all the time. And so I don't keep the details in my head. So, right. I have to, and I apologize, but I have to be better supported if we're going to be more detailed. I can't operate without that.
Well, and I don't disagree. And that's, again, not my intent. My intent is not to be in the weeds. My intent is to, I'm going to have to switch over devices. My intent is not that we would be figuring this out. We have processes, we have guidance, we have templates, we have things available nationally through tech support. We shouldn't be recreating the wheel right now. The reason that this is overwhelming is because we haven't been operating on the processes that we did have written. And so that shouldn't be, yes, volunteer aspect, it should be presented. We sit down at a meeting, we quickly look at it based on a very simplified checklist or whatnot, and we kind of go through things. The problem is that we don't really have those defined, we don't operate on the defined goals we have established.
I like to say
it sounds like
one
it
thing,
would really
that's all.
Sorry, Cheryl, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Cheryl.
I think to be honest, I'm gonna be honest, and you guys gonna be mad at me, but I think this is on a personal basis, on a personal what it is, because it shouldn't be. If the council been running smoothly from day one to now, then it shouldn't be. I just think is what a person, what individual would like to see. Call me, I would like to keep it the same. Cause what you give her, Julie, is okay. Cause if you give her too much numbers, you will lose us. So I just think it's time to sit back and think about our personal, what we want, what we would like to think, and it don't work for the DD Council.
So I think a way
to trying to change everything. And changing this council, it should not be. It should keep how we do business all along.
So do you think it would be beneficial to bring in technical assistance to offer us a training, so that's better understood for executive committee on a path forward? I think it's always best that we hear from them or tech.
I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna cut you off real quick, Julie, because one, we need to operate with members. Two, there's a lot.
But if we operate and don't know what they do, and we go by what we think,
we're not.
We can mix it up. So okay. We'd rather get the person that worked with the members to come in and talk to us.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
So we don't want to mess
so
up
we can
the
wrap
council.
it. There's a number of documents uploaded.
Brittany, let her finish.
Julie, you've not been recognized. Go ahead,
Cheryl. Brittany.
Nope.
No. I'm sorry. I have to say something. That was uncalled for. Just let Cheryl talk, and then you may talk. It is important. You don't cut our members off.
What I'm saying is, let's go back to business. Because this is getting too complicated and too much change could really ruin the council. And I'm sorry, Diane, it doesn't make sense. Because I've been on a lot of council, and I've been a chair, and I had people have been chair. And to change things around that we hadn't, I'm sorry, you guys, I'm so mixed up.
No, I thank you, Cheryl, for your information. And on that note, you are chair of the all group, and you are not interrupted by staff support. You are not redirected. You are allowed to introduce and talk. And so what I've observed of your ability to act in a form of trying to do what you are supposed to do or intended to do with all should be greatly respected. Part of the problem is we have things. This was never supposed to go this detail. This was supposed to be looking over the budget document so that the council was not going off into the weeds either. So bits and pieces, bits and parts. But if there is, we're not bringing ITAC back in to talk to everybody until everybody has done some overviews. So the problem is that ITAC can come in and do a quick overview, but if we've not taken the responsibility of ourselves to go over things, then it's the first time people have heard it. That's not the best way to present information. All the information that they go over is available on their website. I've linked it, and we'll be going over the responsibilities documents from the website at the council meeting. That was what was asked months and months ago, was to what is the council? What do we do? What are our roles? It is theirs. I've not made any edits to it. It is completely from ITAC. Starting with doing those overviews that we were supposed to do at the last meeting that we didn't get to do. Governance is knowing who we are, what we're supposed to do, and how we do it. We delegate the day-to-day of what we want to do to the staff. We don't need to be in the weeds of what she's doing every day. The chair has a federal mandate to be a bit more in the weeds. I don't need to know every step. I don't need to know every penny. I don't want to know all that. I want to have a working relationship. That's what it's supposed to be. But there is a feedback loop. We don't just say go do. There is a feedback loop. It doesn't mean that we're saying the doing is wrong. It doesn't mean that there's any question of wrongdoing on any part. But there is reporting back, and the reports, for that matter, that have been submitted are very inaccurate in a lot of ways, because maybe there's too much, maybe because we didn't have the council doing review like it's supposed to do in ITAC's guidance documents. Maybe if there was that involvement level from members, maybe it wouldn't be so overwhelming and complex for staff or otherwise. There's a purpose to all that. It doesn't have to be that there's any wrongdoing. Change doesn't have to be because something's broken. Change can be improvement. Change can be repairing, fixing services. I mean, we're asking DHS to make changes. Are we saying that they're doing everything wrong? No, we're asking for better.
But shouldn't it be that whole council wanted change? I think so. It had to go back to the whole council. And it had to go back. I guess I don't like change. I like change. Is it for all the good reasons? And I guess I've been here, like, we are doing this form, we are doing this form. That means it's very frustrated because I know we're not. And I know to be the chair is almost like a leadership, making sure everything goes smooth in our own meeting, in our meeting, and then the bigger stuff is for Julie to work on, because Julie is more involved. you know, and I get that my frustrated because I've been hearing we don't have enough people. We are not our grant. How we doing a grant is full, you know. So I just want to get to the business. And I'm sorry and I'm being whatever, but we should be working on a bylaw. We should be working on our procedure. We should, you know, but we haven't been doing that. You know. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm really
You shouldn't be sorry, Cheryl. You have really good points, and I agree. I mean, there's a lot of places that, we can probably do better than we're currently doing, and that's fine, but I feel like we need to take off bite-sized pieces.
And a lot of people, what I've been hearing is not our chairs to just make sure our meeting goes smoothly and making sure the bigger stuff we don't understand. It's like, you know.
I agree, Cheryl. It's not helpful for you to say you're sorry because you've said what you said, and it's important for us to listen. And so you shouldn't. I'm shitting on you, so you shouldn't apologize. I said it before. I need more support to participate well, and I feel like I feel like apologizing to you, Brittany, because I feel like you're having to probably drag this horse to the water. I'm not sure that I'm drinking, and part of it is because I don't know where the water is, and I appreciate the fact that your intent is to make the council work for the betterment of people with disabilities, but to be quite honest, I'm at a point right now of trying to decide if I can do it, because I don't know if I can. So what I feel like I need out of you and Julie are exactly what Veronica said, those bite-sized pieces that I can digest. So it was good to get this manual. We can review that and then take the next step.
You bring up a good point too, Roxanne, because sorry, I have a little echo. I mean, we can't expect that this is everybody's full-time job, and I think we need to make things very easy for everyone to understand and absorb, which means having more time to process some of the information and making sure people get what the agenda's about or what the material's about. So if you feel like you need support, I'm just saying probably everybody would need more support. So.
And that was the intent. That was what December was supposed to be, a bite-sized brief overview, starting with standardized documents that ITAC has produced for years, that many other councils have used, that they come in and read. But again, in the first conversations with them, councils should be working towards informing and educating, and then support. I don't like that it's creating a sense of being overwhelmed. The bite-sized part was always the piece. There was an agreement that we would go through things and look and bring it back to the committee. The committee would decide if it needed to be full council level or if it was something that we could just kind of overview and move on. Bite-size was supposed to be the thing as a whole. And so I'm going to try and do that next meeting again and spend a little bit of time going over the document that ITAC puts out of describing what a council is, what our role is, what members are responsible for, and how they're supported by staff to be able to understand these things and put it together. So with DD councils, much like many other boards, commissions, and other things, the board lies with the responsibility and the decision making. We hire the staff to do and act on the decisions, the staff report back and the staff support the council to be able to make those decisions, understand those decisions, and all the information. It's a loop of communication, and it goes all the way around. Long before chair, I had talked with Julie and have a rough template too of redoing the consumer development grant. There were complaints that it was too complicated. There was complaints that the innovative was too complicated. We've had 2.5 years of great discussions and back and forth before the last couple months. And a lot of things that we did put into place and changed was because it wasn't recognized that, oh, we could do that or we should do this. And the biggest piece of my, in Cheryl's words, personal, I guess, although it's in this position too, is that we do a lot more work than we should because we're not getting the support from our designated state agency. Julie's doing more than she should have to in some ways because she's not getting the support from our designated state agency. The comprehensive review and assessment that was contracted out is supposed to be council. It's done and updated on an annual basis. It's used to formulate our state plan. We should be getting the council. If you get into the weeds and look at all this stuff, the council should be getting all the quality assurance reports from the state. The council's also supposed to be getting the Title 19 surveys. All of that is supposed to be used to answer questions in the annual, the state plan, in the annual reports, and mostly in creating the comprehensive review and assessment. It's not just a systems assessment done by an outside person. It's supposed to be formulated by the detailed information given by the state to the council because we are federally mandated to participate in all of those processes. And that goes back to the DSA thing. That's a whole nother buffet of a bite, not a bite-sized bite. But that's where it comes from. And those are conversations that we've not even been able to have because the governor's office quickly turned and gave everything to DHS. And as evidenced by Julie's presentation to the legislature, which I know was templated, the organizational structure of the council is super far off. Membership is not listed right, and some other things. There's a whole bunch of things, but the organizational piece is where we need to have more support from the agency that is supposed to be providing the nitty gritty so that Julie can do the day-to-day and the people, and the council can be informed and make decisions the way that it could and should. We're supposed to be independent. We're not supposed to be subject to such oversight. There should be significant supports for Julie, for the website, for all that stuff. Over these years, that's stuff we have a memorandum for that's not been upheld. So again, bits and pieces. I had a whole list of the template based on what you guys asked to go through, spend 30 minutes reviewing what an MOU is and why we have it. And then the next meeting's 30 minutes on our MOU. And then the next meeting we draft a letter to say we want to review it. Or I had all of that templated out because that's what you guys asked for. And it got completely torn up. And we spent an hour and a half talking about the weeds of procurement with the full council. And still, the last email I got back from Cheryl says we are subject to competition. There's things that we need to do that we haven't necessarily been doing, but it's a communication struggle. And I believe we can all get on the same page, but it's not supposed to be where we spend several hours at the council level, member level, having to do this. This is support that we're supposed to be getting from the governor's office and from the state in order to do the things that we need to do with a volunteer council.
So we're 45 minutes over, so there's not enough time for me to respond to everything that you just said there, Brittany. But I guess what I want to share is, we created chair, vice chair check-ins to work on these things little by little. It wasn't meant for you to do it all by yourself and report it back to executive committee. You've missed the last 4 of those with Trevor and I. I really want to do this as a collaboration, but that hasn't been the case because you apparently have these things that I haven't seen, we haven't worked on with even the vice chair. And then all I hear about is when there's complaints to ITAC and at the federal level. So how are we going to get to a place where that collaboration actually happens and it's not just, I'd like to be part of the solution here, not just complaining to people it's not getting done, because that doesn't help either. So how can we get,
Julie,
how can we do that?
for my mental health, I opted not to do those check-ins the last couple times because 1, you scheduled them. They weren't collaboratively scheduled. And 2, what transpired at our last meeting was beyond awful.
And that was in response to you inviting procurement again, even though the executive committee tabled that discussion the day before. And then, and before that was brought to executive committee again, you changed the special meeting agenda to make sure you included them because you invited her after it was already submitted and approved by the chair. And prior to that, we'd already had a discussion that you and I would consult with them. And if we had more questions, we would talk with ITAC and we would talk with DHS. There's several things that have gone awry. And yes, I was unable to pull it together to have a meeting with somebody who was made life very difficult for a certain amount of time. So on that note, there's been very difficult communication, the snarky emails in response to asking questions. There's been a lot of stuff that has not made it very easy. I'm not doing things on my own and reporting back to the executive committee. I've been asking you questions for almost 3 years. My methodology of asking you questions about how things are done and how we can do things as a council has not changed in the last 4 months compared to what it was for years. What has changed is trying to answer those questions. And then lastly, I'm not getting anything that nobody else has access to. And as the director, you definitely have access to because you've been communicating with Cheryl for years. You have access to the ITAC website. You have access to the documents and the trainings. You have access to the policies and bylaws and procedures. You have access to the PPRs that you've submitted, the state plans. You have far more access than any of us as members or the public has access to because we don't have that information. Everything that I have read is available to the public. Everything that has been referenced and whatnot has been made available to the public was referenced by ITAC that we should be looking at. All of that, it's all out there. Roxanne.
I don't have any great ideas, so I should probably keep my mouth shut, but I feel like we're going to keep spinning on this unless somehow as executive committee we make some decisions about whether or not we need some work on mediation or try to make some motion ahead, because we've talked about things a lot and we can try to decide whose fault it is that we're still spinning on this. But I almost literally feel like we need help at this point. We need some kind of a mediator to come in and make this work. And if that starts really maybe with you and Julie as chair, or it's all of us as the executive committee, we try to figure that out. This isn't gonna, we're not going anywhere.
I agree. Julie and I have talked recently, and I would like to continue to work things with Julie. Previously, we had a pretty good detailed question asker, people person combo, and we did good things. Julie's the one who put me in touch with Cheryl Matney with ITAC in the first place, long before chair, to ask questions. After initial conversations with Cheryl Matney, things took a negative turn. Again, don't need to necessarily place blame, but that was the turning point in my part. I think that, I've seen documentation of pitting chairs and directors against each other, accusations on that part. However, it doesn't need to be that way. And again, asking questions doesn't mean somebody's doing something wrong. Asking questions is for information. Wanting to improve our processes to give people a voice and to have the council do the things it's supposed to do is my intent. I'm not always the best at executing my intent. That is why there's a great executive committee. That is why we have a good people person for director. But it can't be that we pick things apart in somebody wants to do something, or we need, especially if it's backed in trainings or policies. Yes, I'm the one who reads all those websites. Not everybody does that. But you guys asked, and I tried to bring bite-sized pieces. I had the presentations ready.
to go over at the last meeting, and 4 hours was taken for something that didn't need to be done. So we're going to start Thursday with a council overview so that things Cheryl's asked, what do we do? Why do we do it? Who are we? Are answered. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's information.
Again, Brittany, I just want, the executive committee approved our meeting agenda to work as work groups, bring agency reports, and then you submitted your own agenda to the share drive. So again, there's
the
this
executive
head-to-head
committee did not
here.
approve the agendas. That's part of the problem. The executive committee doesn't approve the
Again, the
agendas. You and
check-in was
Trevor-
missed. Trevor and I worked on it so we could get it out in due time to follow our policies. We said we didn't know what to do to the executive committee. They approved it as written. I mean, so going off and making another one and taking people out for presenting, taking out work group time, taking out agency reports. I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm not always wrong or I'm not always right, but I just want to say again, like, can we follow the agenda tomorrow that was approved? Can we then schedule these items on the next one? I mean, it can't be solo efforts on your end or mine.
No, but we're gonna do the council review. It's inappropriate for Larry Bird to come and present when he has a pending application or proposal. It's inappropriate that it was taken to the state plan committee to ask for approval of his grant when the executive committee tabled it.
We did not approve his grant. It got tabled, and the reason they're coming is there's FASD legislation right now. FASD is our target disparity group. I think it's really important we hear on what's going on with that and talk with Dr. Bird. That was Cheryl's request at last executive committee to talk about work. It's not necessarily that proposal that was tabled. So how is that inappropriate to talk about the disparity work we're supposed to be doing?
I would like to address unfinished business from the December meeting, and that's the information the council needs to understand what we are, what we need to do. It's not changing bylaws, policies, or procedures. It's not getting in the weeds. The agenda, the moving on with agency reports and things is something that you and I were discussing, that we briefly discussed with the executive committee. We've not moved forward with those things. We need to be able to do the things that we're supposed to do on a regular basis, continue to approve grants as requested, and stop pausing, not stopping, but not adding a ton more of other items. You've called several meetings of other committees that were not even called in full because all the members who were appointed to them were not invited. Calling of meetings is not staff. Chairing of meetings is not to be done by staff. That was addressed by ITAC. There are things that need to be done that we do need to do, and part of it, as several have said today, is figuring out what it is, but we don't have to stop the things we already had in place, the grant approvals, the moving on with funds, to make sure people can do the things they need to do, but we can not take on extra. We cannot create a legislative platform in between without the executive committee being involved even. We can just kind of answer the requests of the council from September in going over things. Cheryl?
Can I say something? I've been on a lot of committees. I've been a president of Minor State. When we need to do our agenda, there was Lori and Trevor and me and Lori. We did one agenda. The president, the first chair, did not do her own agenda. They do it with the vice and the director. And when they generate the agenda for that meeting, that agenda should be followed. This should not be the personal one and the council. Don't demand, but that's how I feel. You and Julie and Trevor to do one agenda that follow what the DD council needs.
Thank you, Cheryl. I did include the things that Julie told me that she needed to make sure were covered in the agenda.
If you've been on many meetings, we should all know that. It should be the director, the vice, and the president. They should do one agenda for the meeting. That I never did a personal agenda and say, you got, no. It should only be one. And like I'm gonna say, like Julie said, what she had and Trevor had, that's what we need to hear. We need to hear from B and A. That's what the council needs. And you got, we got homework. I'm gonna get everybody homework. I want you to think about why is it so important to you, Brittany? Okay? Now, give me two. Is it personal, or are you here, or we here for the DD County to make a good change in people's life? Because I agree with Roxy. We are not getting anything done for the people, by the people. So, change is good, but you got to understand why you want to change it. If we want to change it for ourselves, maybe they are not so good changes for the DD Council. So that is our homework. Because you got to think about the council, how the council works. Because this councilor is not a personal gain. We are here for the people, for the parents, for the disability people. That where we need to be focused on, and not what we, no. So I need to go. Bye.
Kim has had her hand up.
Just one thing.
Go ahead,
I
Kim.
was gonna say, in regards to the spinning our wheels kind of comment, my recommendation, and take it or leave it, would be, I know that we're trying to have things in as small a bite-sized pieces as we possibly can to get through many things, but obviously we need even smaller chunks. My recommendation would be, if we're going to schedule a 1-hour meeting, we literally just have something like the chair report. Like, that's all we're going to talk about, because obviously we need extra time for discussion. The next meeting, maybe it's 2 hours and we're just going to go through the financial piece, just because, I mean, I really do need time to like absorb and process. And I'm sure that a lot of the other members feel the same way. Like, I'm hearing it from Roxanne. She's feeling a little lost. And I think that's okay. But in order for us to feel like we're moving and we're making the right choices and decisions as a group, I think we need to really dial it back in, and we need to narrow our scope a little bit more. Otherwise, I think we're just going to keep spinning our wheels because we're trying to accomplish more, because we feel like we're behind and we're not making movement, and then we're just setting ourselves up for failure. I think we need to condense it even further.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And I'm kind of a go-getter, so I know that kills me, but like, we just need to dial it back. And, you know, not that anybody wants more meetings on their calendar, but maybe it's more frequent, shorter meetings, one thing at a time. And then maybe people wouldn't feel so overwhelmed. Again, food for thought, take it or leave it, but just my thoughts.
I like your idea, Kim. Like, I feel like it would be more productive. Like, I know the membership's an issue. I know apparently this financial piece is an issue, procurement's an issue, bylaws are an issue. Can we just take like one meeting and talk bylaw? Can we take one meeting, talk membership? I mean, it might help us actually, instead of just knowing about the problem, do something about the problem.
And that's my fault. I was trying to do the knowing versus the doing, and being transparent doesn't, I mean, it is that, but that's not it. because there's been so much emotion and responses to wanting to find out about what we're doing and how we're doing it, that I want to make sure that you guys are informed of things that we, would move forward looking at. So that was kind of on that part. Again, I have had a game plan of our kind of twice a month meetings to do just the quick check out this. Okay, next time we'll follow up more with this. And it's the information that's all out there on ITAC. It just walks the councils through what we do and how we do it. And so we can kind of put that timeline back together. The 4-hour long meetings that were supposed to kind of happen right before the big council meetings were supposed to be more of that quarterly in-depth when we get to that part. But it's also to alleviate the responses to members who have said they have no idea what's going on at council meetings, or they're overwhelmed with being presented with this and really don't kind of understand why or how or where it fits into the whole puzzle of things, is because there's a lot that happens at the full council meetings that really doesn't need to happen in such detail there either. But that's all, it's bits and pieces as we all learn and come together with the thoughts of everybody. It would help us then make those changes to how we operate more solid, which is the policy part. I'm for updating and changing at the beginning, but in response to how everybody's reacted, I didn't think that was in our best interest anymore. And so kind of dropped some of that. When it comes down to it, that I did want to bring up the membership part, because I do feel that that's important. That is one of the main requirements of the council, is that we are consumer led. We're not consumer led if we're not meeting the 60%. Yes, it's overwhelming to think about. We do get into the weeds when we're talking about why we need to change the membership. So that's hard to keep it trim. But I will take note of the trimming of the trim and see if we can make a timeline of what we review and kind of go from there. Anything else before we say?
And Brittany, when you do that, work with Vice and see what he wants. Don't forget about Trevor. Cause yeah, you need to fight. So work with him and see what he would like to see.
And thank you, Cheryl. That's part of where a lot of my stuff came from.
Good team, not that you could be a good leader. Work with you, Vice.
I talked to Trevor not as frequently in the last couple months after things, but before that, I talked to him on a very regular basis. And a lot of my, hey, let's get this done stuff came from a number of our self-advocates and parent members. So yes, I do have personally invested emotion in this, and I am a try to follow rule person. However, a lot of this came from the council asking.
That help you to see if he don't agree with you, then that could help you to see if that's your personal want, cause that could help you. I'm not putting you down, but I think that what you need to do as personal, see if this what you want as a personal, or is it what the council wants? And working with Trevor, he probably could help you, because something gotta go. We gotta get back on track. So, yeah.
I think we all want that. We all want the best for the council and to be doing the right thing and be good, and I am for that, but I really want it to be an inner collaboration amongst us and Brittany and you and I especially. So however we can make that happen, I will do that, and I want to do that.
Well,
Okay, if we don't have anything else, does anybody want to move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second it.
Kim, did you have something, or were you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, everybody keeps saying the meeting tomorrow, but my schedule shows that it's on Thursday, so I just want to confirm.
It is Thursday, apparently. I don't know what day of the week it is.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I just didn't want to miss something where I'm supposed to be.
It's Giving Hearts Day.
Are you asking for donations, Roxanne?
Oh, no, I didn't say that. That wouldn't be wrong. Just pointing it out. Awareness. Okay, I gotta go too.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Judy, can I call you later?
If you'd like, Cheryl, let me know what time you get to town as well, and I can take you through all that budget stuff if you like.
Okay, did I do too much?